Welcome back to NASCAR Lap by Lap with me, Garon Bach. I'm going to break down what happened over at Homestead, Miami over the weekend. Was able to be there on Sunday, enjoyed it very thoroughly. We're going to take a look ahead at Martinsville, a short track, the first one of the season, at least one that isn't a mile long, just like Phoenix, what people say it is now. And then we have the reigning 2024 Truck Series champion, Majeski, who will be joining us to talk about Martinsville's his performance at Homestead. Very excited for that. Just wanted to shortly talk about Homestead and my experience there. Loved the track. I do agree with what a lot of people have to say, at least for the fans. It seems to be a little bit older, but I'm kind of hoping that what people have said is there's a reason why this track was held a little earlier in the season. Maybe bring the championship back to South Florida. But I don't want to leave you guys waiting. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Majeski on. And I'm very excited to have you on. So, Ty, welcome. The first thing I wanted to ask you about was your performance on Friday. You ran well in stage 1 and stage 2, but you ended up with an 11th place finish. What broke out throughout the race that changed that?
Yeah, we got a bunch of damage on pit road after the second stage. Pit road is really narrow there, and it's hard for the crew chiefs and spotters to call, when things are happening so fast. Obviously, when that left side jack drops, you want to obviously optimize every spot or as much time as you can on pit road. And, the 34 just came out in front of the 45 and me, and we were side by side and got a bunch of damage on my left front, had to come back down and basically forfeit all of our track position at that point of the race to fix that damage. And, we had obviously limited amount of time to fix it. So we ended up going like 3/4 of a lap down. And then thankfully we ended up with the yellow that where Larson spun and at least got us caught back up. So we, basically restarted at the tail end of the field with, I think it was like 35 to go or so. And salvage a decent day. I think we were the third highest point score of the Truck Series regulars. So even though we didn't get the finish we deserved, it was a decent recovery and a solid points night.
So you mentioned Kyle Larson spinning. He came back and won that to win that race. Is there an added pressure or more so of an added excitement to it whenever you go up against a Cup Series regular, or is it just another day at the office for you?
Well, a little bit of both. I mean, we always like having the Cup guys come over and race with us. It's always good to give more attention and get more eyes on the Truck Series. And I think when guys like that come and race with us, it creates more excitement for, our sponsors and fans, and we have more eyes on the series. And I think that's a really positive thing for everybody. So we appreciate when those guys, come and race with us. And the Truck Series is a fun series. And I know that a lot of those guys enjoy coming over and racing with us. So, and we enjoy having them. So, it seems like it's going to be, we're going to have quite a few Cup guys and Xfinity guys come over and race with us throughout the season. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. So your biggest competition this season, you entered the weekend in first place in regular season points, and it's either been a Cup Series regular or Corey Heim winning. Has that type of 1-2 between you two, at least, because you finish near the front, you average a top. I mean, I think you're averaging about 5th place finish right now. So whenever you see him coming up front and you're there and you're there right behind him or right in front of him, does it create any type of energy between you two, or is it just you're racing hard and hoping to get past him at the end of the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, we know we're going to have to race each other all year, right? So I feel like we've kind of been to their bread and butter so far. So I feel like in my opinion, they perform really well in the intermediates, and I feel like where we perform pretty well or maybe better than them is on the short track. So we've kind of been at their house the last few weeks, and now we're going to go to ours these next couple of weeks. So the points, we just have to focus on being consistent and focusing on, when things happen, we're able to recover from them like we did this weekend. So to me, that's going to be the difference between, the regular season champion and maybe not. So just have to minimize those mistakes, and we do have those mistakes because they are going to happen. We just have to focus on recovering from them like we did this weekend. So excited to go to Martinsville and Bristol coming up, Rockingham, some short tracks. So excited to, like I said, get to our comfort zone, and hope we put a good few weeks together here.
I know it's a little off topic from Martinsville or Homestead, but Rockingham, how excited are you for that when it comes up?
It'll be interesting. I think there's a lot of unknown on what type of race it's going to be. It's only a mile, but I'm telling you that place is as fast of a track as we'll go to. We're under 22 seconds on our mock run there, and that's flying for a mile racetrack. I think quick time at Milwaukee, which is also a mile racetrack, I think it was right around 30 seconds. So you're talking 8, 9, 10 seconds faster in the same distance racetrack. It's just, I can't even begin to explain how fast that place is. So, when you have tracks that are fast like that, sometimes it creates difficulties passing. But we saw the track kind of spread, it was off the bottom a little bit, and we were, working multiple grooves throughout the tests when we were there in January. So I'm hopeful that the track widens out and we can put on a good race for everybody.
So Martinsville coming up this weekend, are you expecting a good run there? I mean, you just mentioned your bread and butter. So at the short tracks coming up, are you expecting this to be a series of maybe some top fives, top tens, some stage wins, things like that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, our expectation going to Martinsville is to, sweep the weekend. Obviously, you can't do that all the time, but that's our mindset every time we go to, not just short tracks, but any track. But Joe and I work so well together. I've had a lot of success on the short tracks. He's a short track guy, so we love the short tracks, and feel like we run really well at all of them. We probably had the second place truck the last couple of years to Christian Eckes at Martinsville. So looking to improve on our setup a little bit. We think we've figured out some areas of which we need to work on, and I think we've done that. So excited to go to Martinsville and step outside of our comfort zone a little bit on setup and try and get better, because it's an important race in the fall. We kind of have this test session in the spring. This weekend matters, but if you miss it a little bit and you finish 7th, it's okay. But we're looking to try and hit a home run and dial in a different package for the fall race.
And you're a snowball derby champion. Your late model career. How has that helped you when it comes to these short tracks that you mentioned? I know Bristol has its banking, which very different, but Martinsville very narrow, almost flat, and then Richmond as well. How has that helped you out?
Well, I think it's just the mindset of, short track racing, understanding how to manipulate your vehicle to handle the best that you can make it. There's so many more tools that you have at your disposal on a short track versus on an intermediate. A lot of our intermediates in the truck series, we're all but wide open, maybe a little bit of a lift. And there's only a certain amount of things you can do as a driver to manipulate how your truck handles. Whereas on a short track, you have a lot of different tools at your disposal, whether it be braking, timing of your braking, brake bias, shut off valves. You have all kinds of different things at your disposal that you can tune throughout the race and throughout the run to help your truck. So there's a lot more, I shouldn't say a lot more thinking. It's just a different type of thinking on a short track. And, obviously having, been to so many different short tracks in my career and having raced so many races, it's kind of second nature to me, that kind of stuff. So it just comes natural. And Joe Shears Jr., my crew chief, he's, kind of from the same mold. We grew up in Wisconsin, both of us, and kind of cut our teeth around the same racetrack. So we're able to, kind of really bond over some of the short track history that we've had, and, have been able to apply it to the truck series. So looking for a solid weekend and hopefully get a grandfather clock. As a short track guy who really loves short track racing, getting that grandfather clock to me is one of the ultimate short track trophies. So I got a Tom Dawson trophy. I have a sword from Bristol. So I'd love to add a grandfather clock to that collection.
Real quick, is there a certain trophy that you love to just like? Is there one that's like the center of the mantle? Is there one that you just love to look at maybe once a week, every morning? I don't know how often you want to look at your trophies. I don't have one, but
Yeah, the Tom Dawson is special just because that is the pedestal. That is the cream of the crop of super late model racing races to win. But I don't know that anything could trump that championship trophy from Phoenix. You know, there's nothing like winning a championship, right? It's a collection of the whole season put together and all the hard work that my team and I have put in, and not just the '98 team, but people who have sponsored me throughout the years on short tracks to help me get to this point, and finally was able to make my dream come true. So yeah, I don't know if anything will ever trump that championship trophy.
yeah, your team, Thor Sport. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's 4 out of the last 6 championships have come from that building. How is it whenever you know that hey, my teammate might win this certain race or this or maybe even the championship? How does it keep the competitive nature but also the family type of atmosphere between you and the owner and you drivers and you and other teams?
Well, I think, at least from my perspective, you always want a Thor Sport truck in victory lane, whether it's you or not. So, first you want them in victory lane, or Thor Sport. Duke and Rana deserve to win every single race. Obviously, we're not going to do that, but we do our best we can to do that for them. But but you want to win for your '98 team as well. So there's a balance there. Like if there's anything that we can do or I can do from the seat to help a teammate out. For me specifically, I typically try and do that. Um, you know, I feel like we've helped each other in different situations. I know Ben and I kind of swap back and forth of different things that we do to help each other, and I feel like that's across the board with all Thor sports. So, we always want to keep these trophies coming back to Ohio. We're proud to have this team up here in Ohio and kind of be out of the norm, out of the Charlotte area, the swamp as we call it up here. So we're happy to do this out of Sandusky, Ohio, and we're very proud of that.
So I'm from East Tennessee. You're from the Midwest, Wisconsin. Is there more of a family bond with being from the Midwest, still sticking in Ohio? Because like you just said, you called Charlotte the swamp. So what's the difference of being a team away from Charlotte compared to being there?
Well, honestly, a lot of it's logistics. We've gotten to the point now where we're pretty self-sustainable. We don't really rely on Charlotte vendors or any of that for many parts. We build all our own chassis, hang all our own bodies now in house right here in Sandusky. So I know back in the day, when they were getting their bodies hung from different places and getting motors built from different places um, and chassis. There's constant trips to Charlotte all the time to retrieve those parts or ship them or whatever. So now that we're self-sustainable, it's a good thing. I think we're kind of out on our own island. We kind of keep what we're doing in house. I know when you're sort of in Charlotte, stuff gets passed around. It's hard to keep any secrets there. So I feel like we have an advantage being from up here and kind of doing our own thing and going to the racetrack and winning races and championships.
So back to Martinsville, and you mentioned Bristol and other races like that, the short tracks, and you said that you'd been on dozens of different types of short tracks. What's so different about Martinsville compared to any other short track?
Well, Martinsville, I remember the first time I went there was actually in 2022 with ThorSport, and it really wasn't what I thought it was going to be. You grow up watching races at Martinsville for years, and man, it's such a cool short track, and you get to it, and it's not at all what I thought. It really isn't like any other short track that I've raced on. Just with the way these trucks race at that track, with the heavy braking and how much you have to slow down for the center of the corner, it makes it really hard to pass. So Martinsville's a tough place. Like to me, it's a really hard racetrack for anybody to go and make their debut in a truck, just because you don't get a ton of practice. You don't get a lot of time to figure things out. You don't get too many adjustments to make to your truck just because of the way the rules are. So you pretty much unload and you got what you got. You got 20 minutes to figure it out, and yeah, it was tough. And I know actually my first time practice got rained out, and we went directly to the race. So it was quite a learning experience for me throughout the race. I think we might have ended up 9th, 10th, or 11th that first year, which was pretty mediocre for us on a short track. So the next time we went there, we cracked off a top 5, and then followed that up with a second place finish last spring. So yeah, I've been getting better and better there every time we're able to race there, and hopefully this weekend's the weekend.
I see on your social pages you talk about iRacing. So, with the limited practice, how has iRacing helped you with preparing for a track, or is there any type of difference between, obviously being on a sim compared to being in the actual truck?
Well, iRacing's great. It's been, such a close aspect of my career and my development, and they've supported me for a number of years on the short tracks. I think 2015 was the first year, so we're this is year 11 together of them helping me and supporting me on and off the racetrack. So love everybody at iRacing, love their platform, their product. I don't think there's any better way to prepare for a race and to get seat time than iRacing. So obviously iRacing, you're never going to have that seat feel like you're actually going around the racetrack, the G forces, but it helps so much with hand-eye coordination and understanding, your braking points and how to make lap time around a certain racetrack. So they do such a great job scanning all these tracks, and they're starting to, scan some of these NASCAR tracks a second time, and the detail that they get into is just phenomenal. And how far technology has come, even since iRacing started, back in, I think it was maybe 2008, 2009 or so. It's come such a long way. So just seeing the differences that they're making, just rescanning some of these places is pretty incredible. So I use it weekly as a tool to prepare for different races. And sometimes it's not only going around the racetrack, it's like getting on and off the pit road, right? Doing mock green flag pit stops, right? Understanding where your pit stall is. We pick pits on Tuesday. A lot of times I'll get on iRacing and just eyeball where my pit stall is at on iRacing, just to have an understanding of where it is relative to maybe a pit wall opening or the start finish line. And, just so little things like that can prevent mistakes going into a real race. So iRacing can be used for a number of things, and it's definitely crucial to a crucial part of my preparation and development for each racetrack.
And the final question I have for you today is the Truck Series compared to the Xfinity and the Cup Series. There's longer breaks in between for certain part of the season. I know, for instance, I believe in July there's only one race that month. How during those breaks do you keep yourself in the racer's mindset? How does your team stay in that mindset as well in between those long weeks, if not even close to a month of time off?
Well, a couple layers to that. Us at the shop and my team love it, because it is a grind for these truck teams, especially being out of Ohio, to get to a lot of these racetracks. Like, I know May, like the beginning of May or end of April, all the way to the first weekend in June, we go 5 or 6 in a row, and it's tough for us, tough for the truck drivers, logistically. It's a challenge for us. So I think when we get through June, it's like you kind of exhale and say, oh, we finally have a break. But for me, I try and stay behind the seat, right? I'll have a lot of late model races in June just to fill in that time gap. So I think it's good to have that break for the race team to be able to catch up, get our trucks back intact, make sure everything's ready to rock and roll for the back half of the season and the playoff push. And and for me, I stay busy by late model races. So obviously different ways of looking at the break, but I think overall it's a good thing for everybody, just to be able to catch their breath a little bit. Like I said, get trucks back intact, and like I said, get prepared for that playoff push. Obviously, an important part of our season.
Well, Ty, I just want to thank you for joining. It was an honor to be able to have you on. I hope you enjoyed it, just for the 20 minutes we took out of your day. But thank you once again so much for joining this evening.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. So that was the reigning 2024 Truck Series champion, Ty Majeski. His season has been really good so far. I was looking into it. His worst finish was 11th coming out of Homestead. And it seems for the Truck Series that he might be able to do it again, just especially now and going into the summer. He mentioned all the short tracks he'll be at. I mean, NASCAR's going to Martinsville, Bristol. I know Richmond's coming up soon. And then he mentioned Rockingham, which I'm excited for. I was born in 2003. So Rockingham has not really been a part of my digest in NASCAR. It's been one of those you have to go to NASCARclassics.com to watch a race from there. But I'm looking forward to seeing what he does this season, what Thor Sport will do this season. But I'm now going to backtrack and go back to Homestead, Miami. Like I mentioned, I was there. I enjoyed it very much. The racing was great. Kyle Larson is something else. Seeing the wall riding on TV, seeing all these drivers be that close to the wall, it's so weird because they're going to hit it. But whenever Larson hits it, he doesn't lose speed. I don't get how he does that. But once again, it was another great day by Hendrick Motorsports at Homestead, Miami. They're going into somewhere where they could do well again. I mean, last fall, Martinsville, they went 1-2-3 with Byron winning on the 40th anniversary. So could Larson go back and do it again? And I wouldn't be shocked if he did. I really wouldn't be shocked if a driver did this multiple times this season, of where someone may win 2 in a row, 3 in a row, like Bell did earlier. Because while the car has been even for many teams, it's starting to get to a point to where some teams, which your top teams, your Hendrick, your JGR 2311 has made that next step, it seems, to where they're outrunning some some JGR cars. And then your Penske's, and RFK, who's close, but they still seem to have their struggles. I believe that there's going to be a certain point where these top teams are just going to keep winning and keep winning. And I know and understand Josh Berry just won at Las Vegas, but that's still in the grand scheme of things, a Penske car. I wanted to go into the results from the race. Something that I was impressed with was Chris Buescher finishing in 6th. I have seen Chris Buescher struggle this season. I've seen Brad Keselowski struggle this season, and it seems that he's still doing it again as he finished in 26th. But Ryan Preece, who I had the pleasure of meeting on Sunday, he finished in 9th. Chris Buescher finished in 6th. Those two seem to be making RFK more of a brand name still, because you had Brad Keselowski win at Darlington last season. Buescher, I mean, he had a playoff push. So it's good to see RFK there. William Byron, that penalty cost him the day. He on pit road speeding, just not the best day for Byron at the end of the day. But points wise, he did great. Bubba Wallace, I will be completely honest. I buy T-shirts from those who win a race. I've got a William Byron back-to-back T-shirt, and I was kind of just for style points wanting a Bubba Wallace T-shirt, because that paint scheme looked phenomenal. And if he won, that would have been really cool. But I digress here. Kyle Larson, Alex Bowman 1-2, Larson's 30th career win. A very, very exciting time for Hendrick Motorsports, especially now. They're going to short tracks. This is a place where Denny Hamlin dominated, where Christopher Bell can do well, Kyle Larson does well. So we may be looking at a JGR versus Hendrick Motorsports the next couple of weeks here. So no option tires, from what I understand and from what I've read. So this should be an interesting next couple of weeks for the Cup Series. But here's the one thing that I just completely forget about all the time, is that Penske does so well at Martinsville. Ryan Blaney is first in average finish here. Sorry, I'll go back to my screen here. Ryan Blaney is first in average finish here. Joey Logano is second. So they're 1-2. Logano still doesn't have the win, though, that you would expect from him. I mean, he has 6 top 10s, 3 top 5s. And Blaney has 2 wins, one of those coming last season, which locked him in to the championship race to try to go for a back-to-back for himself. But Joey Logano has an issue to where he still doesn't finish top 10. And I read a stat the other day that I'm pretty sure he's led the most laps in the Cup Series this season, but it's still top 10 list. It doesn't really work, at least just to put into my mind. It doesn't really work that way stats wise, but that's just the truth. That's just exactly what's happened. And then third on the list here of average finish is Kyle Larson. And this is why I mentioned I think that he could go back to back. I I know William Byron does well here. I mean, he'll be racing in the Truck Series this weekend. He just won last spring at Martinsville. I would not be shocked to see Hendrick once again go 1-2 this weekend. It's been a good couple of tracks for him. And if someone is going to compete against Penske at the end of the season, I think it will be the Hendrick Chevys. They seem to put the run together. If Kyle Larson can just avoid wrecking himself going for a win, he might be the champion this year. If William Byron could find a victory instead of sneaking in late, maybe dominate a race, which, like I said, doesn't really matter. I'm not going to judge. A win is a win, and that's for everybody, regardless of how you do it. But Alex Bowman's there, but then there's the name I'm not saying, which is the sport's most popular driver, and Chase Elliott. Some fans, some people are starting to look at Hendrick Motorsports and are saying, could we argue that Elliott is the fourth driver? Which, if you went to 2020, no way. I would have been shocked out of my mind if someone said after he won that championship, hey, 5 years from now, he's not going to have another one. And I mean, that's just the fact. Kyle Larson, life happens, and he got his seat at Hendrick, and he somehow managed to make the most out of it. So, well, I mean, winning a championship that next year, dominating the whole season. But I want to also talk about the Ryan Blaney issues, going back to Penske, of engines blown. 2 engines blown in 3 weekends is not good. And this is a guy who, before this happened, went 6 years without a blown engine. It's shocking. It's confusing, though, because you have Cindric, who is getting about top 15, top 20, top 10 every now and then. And then you have Joey Logano, who, like I said, has the most laps led in the Cup Series this season. But then there's Ryan Blaney, who last week was dominating. He was owning stage 1. And then his engine blows up, which, by the way, the smell of an engine blowing up is like the worst smell I've ever smelled in my life. Terrible. But I wrote on Sunday that I think it's more just lady luck finding the Penske garage, finding the 12 team, because there should be no reason why it should be blowing up. To me, it seems like it's a mechanical issue, which obviously is what it is. But because no way could it be driver error, because it's Ryan Blaney. This is a series champion, has been in back-to-back championship races in the last 4. This is a guy that can get it done. But to close out the show today, I want to talk about some best bets. Last week we did pretty well. I'm pretty sure I had Ryan Blaney up there, but his engine blown up, but it's okay because this week we'll bounce back. So the first one I want to start out with was with outright winners. And I just mentioned it, Chase Elliott. I know it's confusing, but I really like his value. And this is from DraftKings. He's at plus 650 in outright winner. But this is the guy that won at Bowman Gray. He did great there. He put on a show at Bowman Gray. And Hendrick does well if he can get to the top and just find his way there, because it's difficult. Martinsville's been difficult in the next gen car to pass. If he can get himself in a top 5 qualifying spot, I would not be shocked to see him winning this weekend and be able to stop and to shut out the slander of, you know what, I'm not the 4th driver at Hendrick, which is no disrespect to anyone. They're driving for Hendrick Motorsports. So the other driver I wanted to mention for a top 5 was Bubba Wallace. He's coming off a top 3 finish. He's had a top 4. He had a top 4 in the spring race last season, and his pick overall is just a good value for a top 5. He's at plus 380. like I mentioned, the Toyotas do well here at the short tracks. You look at Richmond, you look at Bristol. Could they crack open Martinsville? I think they could. And with Bubba Wallace, I think with the value, that is a really good pick. And then two of the other bets I liked was Chase Briscoe as a top Toyota. I know I mentioned Bubba Wallace as a top 5, but that's not saying Bubba Wallace will finish second or third. Chase Briscoe is at plus 250. He has started in the top 5 at Martinsville in the past 5 races. I'll repeat that. He has been fast enough, and this is back whenever he was with Stuart Haas. Past 5 races, he was starting in the top 5. So this is someone who can qualify up front, and I do not see why he will not be able to qualify up front again. And like I mentioned for Elliott, to just if you can qualify up front, you can block well, and you should be good enough to at least finish up there. And then finally, my top Ford was Joey Logano at plus 275. As I mentioned, he's second in average finish behind Ryan Blaney at the track since 2022. And while he is winless, his worst finish is 10th. He could easily be the top Ford of the day, and that's if he can get past Ryan Blaney. And like I mentioned, Ryan Blaney's had his issues. He has had his issues as a team this season. So if this is the track for Joey Logano to finally get his top 10, I mean, he's the reigning series champion. To finally get his top 10, this is it. It's as easy as that for Joey Logano. My pick to win the race is Kyle Larson. I think he does it again. I think Larson does it again. But I'm going to go ahead and end it here. I appreciate Ty Majeski for joining us earlier from Thor Sport. I appreciate you guys joining and tuning in as well. And we will be back here again next Wednesday. And please feel more than free to come back then as well. Thank you so much for joining once again.